evening and welcome to the Rainbow Review, a program dedicated to bringing you the week's most notable LGBTQ news stories and events. I'm Susan Frawley and my co-anchor is Stephen Ryan. Good evening, Stephen. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great.
And did you have a good week?
Yeah, I finished some papers and I got some homework done. That's always a good week.
That's always a good thing. So are you free and easy and clear, or do you still have a lot to do?
If you don't think of my finals, I'm free and easy and clear.
Oh yeah, sure. No, those are nothing at all. Just nothing at all. You'll be fine. So are you ready to do the news?
I'm ready. Let's
All
get
right,
to it.
Let's go.
On April 13th, there was a spontaneous protest at the CSU Chico campus. A gentleman set up a stool outside of the marketplace at the BMU and began preaching. It was peaceful until he targeted an intern from BCAC and began to make homophobic remarks. According to students we spoke with that were at the protest, he called students swine. He also told some people that God hates you and I will celebrate when you are in hell. Approximately 30 students gathered around the man and held up signs. They played Macklemore's One Love and also spoke out against him. He was supervised by the campus police, but there was no violence. He was breaking no laws as the area of campus is a free speech zone. It would have only been breaking the law if he used hate speech. One student said that students spoke up as they wanted to draw attention to the fact that there are people with these beliefs and these beliefs can result in death for some people. Gay and bisexual men can contract the Zika virus through unprotected sex, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. In the first reported case of gay men contracting the virus through sexual contact, scientists have said this has added to the understanding of how Zika can be transmitted. There are no preventative medicines or vaccines to stop someone from getting Zika. A man from Dallas, Texas, who had sex with a man who had been infected with the virus while traveling to Venezuela, 2 days after he returned home, his symptoms developed. A week after his return, his longtime partner, who had not traveled outside the country, also became ill. 7 cases of sexual transmission of the Zika virus have been observed in the U.S. 5 other countries, including Argentina, Chile, France, Italy, and New Zealand, have reported sexual transmission cases. Scientists are not yet clear whether the virus is transmitted through kissing, oral sex, or anal sex, as it has been found in both saliva and semen.
There is also more negative medical news to report this week. A strain of gonorrhea resistant to some antibiotics has been detected in gay men. The outbreak of a strain of gonorrhea resistant to azithromycin was discovered among straight couples in 2015 in England and now has been confirmed in gay couples. 34 cases have been detected in lab tests, though it's feared there are many more. Doctors are urging couples to have protected sex in order to contain the infection. So far, they say attempts to curb infections were ineffective. This particular bacteria strain is resistant to azithromycin, which is used together with ceftriaxone to treat gonorrhea. It's feared a bacteria strain resistant to one will soon develop resistance to both. The strain is highly infectious. Of 22 people infected who contacted previous partners, 94% had caught the disease. A new study reported by the Science Daily could help explain how homosexuality has persisted throughout human history, despite the fact that homosexual men seldom produce offspring. According to the findings, around half of all heterosexual men and women potentially carry so-called homosexuality genes that are passed on from one generation to the next. The study was conducted by Georgi Shaladze of the Ilia State University in Georgia and published in Springer's Journal Archives of Sexual Behavior. To research his bold conclusion, Shaladze used an individual-based genetic model to explain the stable yet persistent occurrence of homosexuality within larger populations. He took into account findings from recent studies that show that homosexual men tend to come from larger families. These suggest that the genes responsible for homosexuality in men increase the actual number of children someone has among their female family members who also carry the genes. It is important to note, however, that there is debate in the scientific community if a gay gene even exists. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the U.S. Department of Education's assertion that federal civil rights laws protect transgender students from discrimination on April 19th. In a 2-1 decision, the court affirmed the Department of Education's interpretation of Title IX of the Education Act of 1972 as protecting transgender students from discrimination, including allowing them to use restrooms consistent with their gender identity. The ruling came in the case of Gavin Grimm, a 16-year-old high school student and transgender teen whose lawsuit against Virginia's Gloucester County School District alleges the district violated Title IX by denying him use of the boys' restroom. The ruling by the Fourth Circuit affirms that school districts denying transgender students access to bathrooms consistent with their gender identity are in direct violation of Title IX. That's true of the Virginia district that has been discriminating against Grimm, and it's true of any school that chooses to comply with HB 2 in North Carolina, which is also in the Fourth Circuit.
There have been some changes in the religious freedom law that was passed in North Carolina. On April 12th, Governor Pat McCrory issued an executive order that made limited changes to HB 2. The order affirms that private businesses and nonprofit groups can establish their own policies for restroom facilities, something that was not affected by the law but has been the subject of some confusion. McCrory's action also affirms that private businesses, nonprofits, and local governments can establish their own employment non-discrimination policies for their own workers. And it expands the state's employment non-discrimination policy to include sexual orientation and gender identity. That is, for state employees. McCrory said he will also seek legislation allowing workers to sue in state court for discrimination, something that was explicitly barred by HB 2. These developments may have come from the loss of finances that the state is experiencing. Ringo Starr is the latest celebrity to cancel plans in the state, and so far 13 planned conventions and events in Charlotte have been canceled in response to the state's anti-LGBTQ bill. 8 cities and 4 states have banned publicly funded travel to the state. One of the people protesting the laws in North Carolina was comedian Joe McHale, but he did not cancel his appearance in Durham. He went ahead with his show wearing a t-shirt that read, LGBTQ Durham. He says he went ahead with his show after he discovered that the Durham City Council passed a resolution opposing the bill. He also told his audiences that, I am going to donate every single dime I make tonight to the LGBTQ Center. Cyndi Lauper also plans to appear in North Carolina and then donate her proceeds to charity. The list of performers who are either boycotting or donating is too big to list on this program. In another victory, on April 18th, the sponsor of the Tennessee bill that would have forced transgender students to use restroom facilities inconsistent with their gender identity pulled the discriminatory bill from consideration for this year. Tens of thousands of Tennesseans, major national child welfare, medical, and education groups, country music stars, more than 60 major business leaders, and other groups have spoken out urging lawmakers to abandon the legislation. This comes just days after lawmaker Jeremy Durham, who despite being a vocal proponent of the state's discriminatory bills on the grounds that transgender people may harass women in bathrooms, was discovered to have been recently punished for harassing his own female staff. The allegations against Durham have gotten so bad that the lawmaker was removed from the state capitol building and relocated to an entirely different office, labeled a continuing risk to women.
Mainstream media is starting to dig deeper to find out where the onslaught of anti-LGBTQ legislation is originating. CBS Evening News correspondent Dean Reynolds went to the Orlando, Florida headquarters of the anti-LGBTQ legal nonprofit Liberty Counsel, where the group's founder proudly took credit for the recent increase in state-sanctioned bigotry. CBS News notes that Liberty Counsel has been helping to draft legislation for conservative lawmakers in at least 20 states. The group provided legal representation to anti-gay Kentucky clerk Kim Davis when she said her faith prevented her from doing the job she was elected to do and issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples. CBS did not explore the long list of right-wing, anti-gay clients Liberty Counsel has championed, nor did the network disclose that the organization has been designated an anti-LGBTQ hate group by the Progressive Southern Poverty Law Center. Republican presidential hopeful Ted Cruz today expressed support for anti-transgender bathroom bills, like the one recently enacted in North Carolina. The candidate said that as the father of daughters, I'm not terribly excited about men being able to go alone into a bathroom with my daughters at a town hall meeting in Buffalo, New York. In response to the backlash that the state is experiencing, Cruz claimed that the backlash was based in political correctness, and he blamed the Obama administration, which has held that federal laws banning sex discrimination apply to discrimination based on gender identity. Sharon Stone has joined the list of people boycotting the state of Mississippi. Her short film about cyberbullying, The Principal, will now be shot in another location. The actress stated that I will not work in any state that holds or is actively creating laws to legally support discrimination against American citizens, whether due to their race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation, nor where those laws are passed or approved by the government of said state.
Louisiana's governor has gone one better than his rescinding of the state's religious protections law. Governor John Edwards issued an executive order on April 13th that bans discrimination in state government based on sexual orientation and gender identity. The protection order prohibits state agencies, boards, and contractors from harassment or discrimination based on race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, political affiliation, disability, or age. State contracts will be required to include a similar anti-discrimination provision. The order includes an exemption for state contractors that are religious organizations. The provisions affecting contractors take effect July 1st. The rest of the order starts immediately. Louisiana doesn't have a state law protecting the state's LGBTQ residents from discrimination, and efforts to enact such a law have failed. Shreveport and New Orleans have passed their own anti-discrimination ordinances. And now for this week's community calendar. On April 27th, CSU Chico's Safe Place is holding a local Denim Day. Denim Day is a national event that confronts victim blaming and myths about rape and sexual assault by wearing denim jeans to show your support. Safe Place will be tabling in Trinity Commons and will have activities available to engage you. On April 28th at 7 p.m., the AS Gender and Sexuality Equity Center is proud to present Disrupting the Silence, Using Anger as a Form of Art in Sylvester's Cafe on CSU Chico's campus. This event is a free performance and visual art showcase that focuses on creating space for people to express their anger about being oppressed because of their various identities. Now here's Stonewall's weekly calendar. Ally Zone meets the first Monday of each month from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Safe Talk meets the second Monday of each month from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Say A, which is for people of the age of 18 to 35, meets Wednesdays from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Say Teens, which is for people of the age of 14 to 17, meets Thursdays from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Transgender Stonewall meets Thursdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Stonewall's adult group can be found on meetup.com, or you can call the center for upcoming meeting times. On Saturdays, the center offers free and confidential HIV testing. And don't forget, at the Maltese, every Wednesday is Wednesday.
A court in central China ruled against a gay couple in the country's first same-sex marriage lawsuit. Sun Wenlin and his partner Hu Minglang sued their local marriage registry after their license application was denied last summer. The district court accepted their application last January, and they argued that they should be able to marry as there is no explicit ban in China. The court dismissed the case and cited several provisions that specify genders of license applicants in the country's marriage law, which went into effect in 1981. Uganda's Speaker of Parliament has said that anti-homosexuality law could return at any time. Uganda's anti-gay law was repealed in August of 2014. Due to there not being the required amount of politicians in Parliament during the vote, it was repealed over a technicality. The Speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, who promised to pass the law as a Christmas gift to the population, said the bill could be brought back to be voted on at any time. Over 200 lawmakers signed a petition demanding a swift vote to undo the ruling by the Constitutional Court, but President Museveni declared it's not a priority. But now he has won February's election, and he may be willing to renew his attack against the LGBTQ community. The law would impose life in prison as a punishment for being convicted of homosexuality.
Air France has begun serving a new route to Iran despite protests from gay air stewards. The company is launching a new route from Paris to Tehran. The new route has been controversial with women and gay men working for Air France, after a memo instructed female staff members to wear headscarves and trousers. The company said it will introduce an exception so that female employees who don't want to work on the route will be granted exemptions. But gay staffers say they are being forced to work the route. A gay air steward started a petition calling for gay staff to be allowed to opt out of the route that has attracted tens of thousands of supporters. He urged the company to grant gay crew members the right to refuse to go to a country where they could be killed for who they are. Iran continues to enforce the death penalty for homosexuality. A case has been filed on April 15th with Kenya's High Court aimed at striking down the country's ban on gay sex. Gay people in Kenya can face up to 14 years imprisonment, and politicians have backed harsher anti-LGBTQ measures. The law, which dates back to 1930, any person who has carnal knowledge of any person against the order of nature is guilty of a felony and is liable of imprisonment for 14 years. The Penal Code does not specifically ban lesbian sex, but in 2010, the country's prime minister ordered police to start arresting women too. Eric Guattari of the National Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission filed the case with the country's high court, arguing the Penal Code violates constitutional rights to equality, dignity, and privacy. It contends those laws degrade the inherent dignity of affected individuals by outlawing their most private and intimate means of self-expression.
Australia's first ever exclusively LGBTQ fertility centre has opened, offering donor insemination, IVF, donor egg and sperm programs, egg and sperm freezing, and surrogacy services. Rainbow Fertility, owned by one of Australia's largest privately owned IVF providers, City Fertility Centre, opened in 4 states: New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and South Australia. A first for Australia, the Rainbow Fertility Centre is an encouraging step forward for a country that is yet to legalize gay marriage. The Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists recently announced it supports gay marriage in Australia because the mental health of LGBTQ people in Australia and New Zealand was amongst the poorest of any demographic, owing to discrimination and marginalization. The country's largest communications company, Telstra, has gone back and forth on its support of same-sex marriage, but as of April 18th is once again voicing support on the issue. The cartoon The Powerpuff Girls has recently been revived by the Cartoon Network, and an episode deals explicitly with trans issues. In the episode, Powerpuff Girl Bubbles encounters Donnie, a talking horse who runs around with a fake horn on his head. Donnie explains, "I may not have a horn, but I do have a heart, and in that heart I know I'm a beautiful unicorn." Bubbles convinces him to undergo a risky transmogrifying procedure to become a unicorn. The horse agrees to the procedure without looking through all the consequences, but it goes wrong, and he turns into a giant monster. Donnie eventually finds a way to revert to his old self with help from the Unicorn Coalition Alliance Brigade headquarters, and finds out he was a unicorn all along. The episode ends with a heart in the colors of the trans pride flag. Although intended to bring up trans issues, many people in the trans community have seen the episode as transphobic because of the anti-surgery slant on the cartoon and because Donnie calls himself a freak after the surgery. This week, our special guest is Lori Bennett Cook, a clinical sexologist. Many of you might know Lori because she was a Chico resident before she moved down to Long Beach. Welcome, Lori. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm great.
Good.
Yeah,
it's very awesome to see you. I miss you.
I
we
miss you
miss having you here to lighten up our life in Chico.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So, why don't you start by telling us you've moved down to Long Beach, yes?
Yes, we moved down to Long Beach about 1.5 years ago. Kind of kicking and screaming. Didn't want to leave Chico because it's so beautiful here. But I learned very quickly that I don't always know what's best for myself. And it's turned into being the best move and life changes that we could have made. Yeah, not just for ourselves, but just changing the world.
Good.
Yeah.
I know many people miss you both.
Oh, thanks.
So why don't we find out what's going on with you now that you're down there in Long Beach?
Okay.
What is it that you're doing for employment?
Well, I'm doing my clinical sexology work, so I'm privately employed and primarily working as a surrogate partner therapist. And I'll give you a whole backstory on what that is. A lot of people don't know. I also do a lot of lecturing at the different universities and colleges down there about sexual health, sexual education, STIs, various forms of relationship configurations, sexual orientations, gender identity, etc., and just educating young people on everything outside the heteronormative.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier before we started the interview, you're doing some work in China where you're apparently a celebrity in China?
To the Chinese, I guess, but yes. I'm part of the Chinese Sexological Association. Started with that 3 years ago, and before moving down to Long Beach. And we set up a Chinese Sexological Research Center in China at that time. Nice. And we travel over there, and sometimes they come out to see us in Los Angeles, and then we travel over there and do all forms of sex education for the community there, because they don't have that as part of their educational system at any level. And so the people that we talk to are psychologists, they're a form of social workers, medical professionals, women that own various spas, which is where we would be talking to them, and then they can then talk to their clientele that comes to them about sexual pleasure and sexual health, because they don't have anything. And we teach everything from childhood and adolescent sexuality all the way up. We can't really talk to them yet about anything outside the heteronormative. They're just not ready for it.
No,
they're just not ready for it. Yeah. We try to kind of like hint on it a little bit, and watch the twitching and the what is this? But it's a little scary to them right now.
I'm sure it is. So now you touched on it just now with what you were saying. So what a clinical sexologist is it mostly an educational role?
It is the study and research about all things sexuality, but not just studying sexuality, more about how people feel about and think about what it is that they're doing sexually. And just helping people, being more of a permission giver, helping people come into their full sexual self, whatever that looks like for them, and being comfortable in owning their place and being their authentic self with sexuality.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really awesome. I like that. And now, also, you are a surrogate
partner therapist.
Okay. Also, you do surrogate partner therapy, yes? And could you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. Surrogate partner therapy started with Masters and Johnson when they were doing talking with different couples about any sexual hang-ups that they had going on or issues or concerns, and they could give them homework type assignments to go home and work with each other on. And they found that people that didn't have a partner, you can only go so far with talk therapy. You can't go meet somebody and practice how to caress and hold hands and touch this way. So as a surrogate partner therapist, what my role is to be a stand-in partner for that person, and we work in a triadic model with a regular talk therapist, somebody who's trained in sex therapy actually. So it's not just any therapist, it's someone who knows about all the dynamics of sexuality. So they have their talk therapist, and myself and the client will see ideally, the best way for it to work is that they see me and we do experiential exercises together, and then I call the therapist, let them know what it was that we've been working on, how they were able to handle it, what their capacity is, what they can handle, what they can't, where they had hang-ups, etc. And then they can talk with their therapist and do processing, etc. And then the therapist and they decide what's to work on next, and then they contact me, and then the next session we work together, and it goes like that for several months.
Wow.
Most of the people that I work with people of all genders and all ability levels with their body. I work with a lot of virgins. Like my trans clients tend to be virgins because they haven't been comfortable in their sexuality, and because they felt very much in the wrong body, but maybe they're 35 years old now and their body's transitioning where they want it to be and they're feeling really good, but they don't know how to maneuver themselves and their body that way. And then disabled clients also could be somebody who's disabled from birth, or somebody who was maybe come back from war or come, out of a car accident or something, and how do I still find pleasure in my body? And when I say that I work with, most of my clients are virgins, people think, our mindset is automatically like, oh, a virgin, you've never had intercourse. When I say virgin, I mean it's so remedial, the work starts so remedial. I'm probably the first person that they've ever even held hands with.
Yeah, I was going to say that's where
or
you're
we
starting.
make eye contact together and learn how to have a conversation with somebody. I teach them how to hug another person, how to hold and caress and spoon, and these are all experiences that many of them have never even had.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's really impossible to tell somebody who has not had any of those experiences to just, go on OkCupid and meet somebody and
it's not.
It would up for failure.
Yeah. And that I think many of us don't realize that it is difficult for some people to go out there. That we think, well, just go hold hands with someone. But if you're having issues with yourself and with your body and how you feel about your body, that would be a big deal. So that's good work you're doing. Fantastic.
Yeah. And if you're so closed off in your body and so self-conscious about different things and so awkward and uncomfortable, you're not going to be comfortable sharing that with somebody else. So
definitely.
So you get to work out the bugs, and then I do my job right and work my way out of working with you and head out.
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Love what I do.
Well, it has been lovely to have you here, and I miss you, and I wish you would come back to Chico, but I know you're doing fantastic things down there. So usually we don't hug our guests at the end of the interview. Fantastic. I love you too. It's so good to see you.
If any of you are interested in appearing on our show as a guest to either promote an event or showcase your own business or talent, please email us at therainbowr@gmail.com or visit us at our Facebook page, The Rainbow Review. The Rainbow Review is dependent on support from the community. If you are interested in sponsoring our show, please contact us for details. All contributions are tax deductible. And that is our show for this week. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful night.
Orlando, Florida. Yeehaw.
That's a pretty face, Susan. It's a pretty face.